This is the AI Music Revolution, brought to you by JG BeatsLab. JG BeatsLab is a methodology company for serious musicians working with AI tools. Not tips, not hacks, a complete system for getting consistent professional output from platforms like Suno and Murica. We call it the unlocked system. The framing is simple. You can be a vending machine operator, pressing buttons and accepting whatever the AI gives you back, or you can be a director, understanding the platforms well enough to get exactly what you want from them. Lane 2 work, human-authored, AI-assisted music creation. That's what this show is built on. Here's today's episode. Hello and welcome to the AI Music Revolution. I'm your host, Josh Gilliland, fresh back from NAMM in beautiful Southern California. I was just there last week. For those of you that don't know, NAMM is the big conference every year where all musicians and music makers from around the world get together and look at all the new cool toys and such in the music industry. And they also have a lot of education sessions and panel discussions, which is where I spent the vast majority of my time. And let me tell you, AI was on top of everybody's mind. It was illuminating, and I enjoyed every second of it. I was exhausted by the end of it because I just sat in sessions and took copious amounts of notes. And very excited that I was able to go down there, and very excited to share this information with all of you. I've already done a blog post about this as well. We'll cover a little bit of the same ground here, but then some new ground as well as I talk through my trip. I do have notes that I'm going through, but some of this will probably just be ad-libbed as I go along because I just want to get this out. So the vibe at NAMM this year was one of, if you were in the main hall where they had the equipment, the guitars and the drums and the pianos and the mixers and the this, that, and the other thing, it felt very similar to NAMM of years past. But if you ventured over into the Hyatt, where all of the learning sessions were, it was a much different tone. It was a tone of defensiveness. It was a tone of concern about what the future with AI and music is going to bring. There was a lot of, you could feel the moats being built around the existing infrastructure of the industry, and there was a lot of protectionist that was taking place. As I sat through these sessions, it just became clear to me that these discussions were not discussions. They were largely one-way monologues of basically why AI is bad in music and why AI in music is doomed and why their way, their historic way, is the right way and the way that will prevail. But this came from a real center of fear. You could hear the fear in their voices as they were going through this. So I think this was mostly wishful thinking on their part. Let me just talk through some of the things that came up, some of the experiences that I had in these discussions, some of the things that I heard firsthand and saw firsthand. So the first thing that I will call out is what the industry at large is saying about AI. The prevailing sentiment is that AI in music is junk food for the brain. That was an argument that Craig Anderton made in one of his keynote speeches. He also said, and this was slightly cringy when he said it, but AI in music is like sex, whereas human-created music is like making love. Those are two very different experiences. And that was the point that he was making. But I had to get that image out of my head as he was talking. So it was really like AI music is a sugar rush. It hits and then it has no lasting power. And as he was saying these things, the room would explode into applause and cheers. And so it was definitely an audience that was anti-AI. So he was preaching to the choir. It was also, and this is beyond just Craig's keynote, there was a lot of conversations about how AI imitates where humans and music are the ones that are actually influencing, right? So what I mean by that, so AI it imitates what it knows. So you feed in music catalogs, and then it replicates the sounds and the patterns that it learns from those. So it imitates those sounds. Whereas humans are influenced by music. We are influenced by the songs that we've heard through our lives. And so, yes, we also internalize these songs, these catalogs, but then that influences us to make additional new and creative decisions in the music space. So it's drawing a line of like how AI, their view is AI is like a copy machine for music, and humans are the only one that can really be just influenced by historical music and actually come up with new genres and new sounds. Which, by the way, I completely disagree with. That was the point that they were trying to make. There was a lot of conversation also, which I thought was really interesting, about how humans have a very hard time telling the difference between human-generated music and AI-generated music. I think the number was like 97% couldn't determine what was AI versus what was human. But then they said the human songs, the listener wanted to go back and listen to those more than once. So there was something engaging inside of the human created songs versus the AI songs that had a little bit of a stickiness to them that had created an appetite for the listener to go back and get more. Okay, to me, the biggest thing there was 97% can't tell the difference between AI and human created music. So let's just stop there and just take a look at that. AI generated music is the quality of it is tremendous, and it's only going to get better. And I just thought that was interesting because they were still trying to draw a line between how human driven music is better than AI, even though the data really didn't prove that out in what they were discussing. I know that I'm pro AI music, but that does not mean that I'm anti human created music either. And by the way, it's not black and white like that. For me, the music we're creating is AI influenced with human direction. But that aside, and I understand some of the concerns that they have, they being the embedded industry. If you look at the royalty pool, if you're flooding the market with AI slop, then that dilutes the royalty pool because the royalty pool is fixed. And so then it just, however many people get into the pool is how it gets divided, how many streams they get. And so the pushback was these AI bands pushing their content out there is diluting the royalty pool that existing artists are pulling from. Fair. And I'm not saying that I'm a proponent for AI slop to be flooding the market, but also royalty streams are a tiny portion of where artists actually make their money. So we're talking about the pennies in the corner. We're not talking about the real money that is made in the industry, which is through things like merch sales or touring, playing live music, sponsorship deals, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're talking about the pennies in the corner. But that was a concern that they brought up. I understand. I empathize with it. Yes. But here's the thing that in these conversations they were really missing was I view AI music as there being two lanes to the music. Lane one is that spam, the person who just auto-generates a bunch of songs through their whatever tool of choice and immediately just floods it out onto the streaming platforms, pushing hundreds of songs a day or a week or whatnot, and then getting bots to stream those songs to help increase their royalty payouts. Yeah, all that's gross. Let's not do that. But let's also separate that because that's not what we're talking about here. The listeners of my podcast or subscribers to the JG BeatsLab ecosystem. What we're talking about is human-authored, AI-assisted production in music. And that's a big difference. We are talking about how us as humans, us as music creators, can utilize AI to really bring out those sounds that we want, or really bring out that music that we want, or to turn the creativity that's between our ears into something that others can consume. So that's very different. That's the lane two. It's very different Then lane one, which is that spam and kind of fraudulent work that's out there. But unfortunately, the industry is conflating these two. They're basically saying if it's AI, broad brush, it's spam. AI, broad brush, it's AI slop. And we know that's not true. Those of us who are creating music with AI tools know that's not true. And the industry is trying to keep that conversation going or to keep controlling the narrative in that way. But eventually the truth will be known that there is this lane too, the human authored AI assistant production lane, which is the one that we occupy. So they're fighting this caricature. They're fighting this caricature of all of us in the AI music community just prompting and shipping, right? That's all we're doing. Hit pound in a prompt, generate, WAV file, dropped, and the DistroKid submitted, moving on. They don't understand that for most of us, there's a human in the loop. We're writing lyrics. We're humming melodies into whatever recorder we have and then feeding that into the AI system to then replicate that with instruments behind it. We're generating and regenerating until we get the sounds that we want in that song. And then we're pulling that music into our DAW, where we're doing our own mixing and mastering. We're adding effects. We're adding elements to the song as well. We're doing a lot of engineering along the way. And so they don't understand this human in the loop. And even if they do, they still say, that's AI, it's cheating. What's the goal? Isn't the goal to create music? Right? Like, why are we discussing the path towards that music's creation? Isn't it great that when we just create the music, that we can just sit and enjoy the music? Isn't that the goal? Quick break in the episode. If what you're hearing today is connecting with you, the place to start is the minimum starter kit. 3 books, $27. Make it, release it, promote it. The first book is Unlock Suno, the complete guide. This is the methodology for getting consistent, professional output from Suno. The Suno Stack mental mode, persona work, style box weighting, the director's cut workflow. The second book is Unlock Music Rights and Registration, royalty collection, copyright protection, ASCAP, MLC, Sound Exchange, DistroKid, and the disclosure landscape we're now operating in. Everything you need to actually get paid for the music you're releasing. The third book is Unlock Music Promotion, how to get heard once your music is out there. Playlist pitching, audience building, the platforms that move the needle and the ones that don't. Make it, release it, promote it. $27 at jgbeatslab.com/store. Back to the episode. So anyway, so they're missing that whole human in the loop element, which to me is vital. The loudest voices in the room were being loud primarily to protect their legacy economics, if I'm being honest. There was some moral positions that were taken. One that I thought was illuminating to this was I was at a panel discussion and there was an artist on the panel, and she was talking about how she's really concerned about her music being used in AI tools to learn, right? So she was really concerned, hey, these AI platforms are taking my songs and learning and then creating music on top of that is then in turn competing against me. And she was an indie rock artist or something, I don't know, not a genre that I listen to. And so I was like, wow, she's really passionate about this. So let me pull her up on Spotify real quick. So I pull her up on Spotify, and she has 100 monthly listeners. Now, I'm not dogging that. Having 1 monthly listener is like, hey, somebody is consuming your art. How great is that? But I'm pretty sure that 100 monthly listeners does not mean that the AI tools are really over-indexing on her music, and that AI produced music is really competing with her for her fan base. And so to me, it was like we're chasing ghosts a little bit a little bit here, right? Because it pulls at your heartstrings. Oh yeah, that sucks. Somebody's using your music inside of an AI tool to compete against you. How awful. So it pulls at that like emotional center of us as humans. But that's all it is, an emotional center pull, not the facts just weren't there. So anyway, so I thought that was a really an illuminating tidbit from one of the conversations. So there's a legal reality, though, that was touched on in a lot of these sessions that is true. But this was the thing that they were hanging on to tightly, and that is fully AI-generated music is not copyrightable. Okay, what we're talking about here in the JG BeatsLab world is not about fully AI-generated music. And so what we're talking about is the human in the loop, which through those discussions, there was nobody that was able to say that with a human in the loop, that now all of a sudden becomes not copyrightable. Now, the laws are changing quickly. Like they were saying, hey, the laws will be different by the end of the day today. And so who knows what the future will bring. But right now, their corner case is simply fully AI-generated music where somebody just hammers in a prompt, generates a song, spits it out onto DistroKid. That's not copyrightable. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here at JG BeatsLab. It's not an issue. Let's move on. That's lane 1 stuff. We operate in lane 2. There was another interesting story as well about there was this monkey that took a picture, like it grabbed a camera, a trail camera or something, I don't know, and took a picture. And the monkey's sitting there smiling in the picture, and it's a funny picture. And it was up for an award, and I'm probably getting some of this wrong, directionally correct. It was up for an award or something, and the person who owned the camera, who developed it, put in for the award. And it came back and said, no, this is not actually your work because the monkey is the one that took the picture. And so there was a lot of conversations about how the AI system, the Suno or whatever your AI system of choice, is the monkey in that scenario where the AI system generates the music is the same as a monkey taking a selfie. We're not monkeys, right? Like we are the human in the loop. AI is a tool. Suno is a tool that we use. It's not the end all be all. And so to me, it was a straw man argument, which it was comical. And I thought it was an enjoyable anecdote, but I just don't feel like it holds water with the work that we're doing. The human authorship is what really anchors your ownership. And so as long as you're out there writing your lyrics, creating your melodies, doing the mixing, adding elements, you're the human in the loop. You're the one that's pulling the levers. To me, that's much different than a monkey selfie. And another thing that's really interesting is the industry is moving towards licensing, not litigation. We've been in heavy litigation for a while now. Actually, one of the speakers said AI stands for attorneys incoming. Round of applause, everybody's laughing, right? But really, the industry is starting to turn a little bit and get into licensing. You look at some of the deals with Suno or Udio with the record companies that are out there, you're seeing how they are trying to make sure that they get a cut, right? The legacy industry. And they're doing that through licensing. And that's probably the path towards the future. You'll probably see more of that licensing out there, but hopefully the litigation piece will start to let up a little bit, because otherwise the only people that get paid are the lawyers, and who needs that in their life? So what does this mean for us as creators, us as AI music creators and artists? First of all, own your process. Use these AI tools as tools, but make sure that they're a part of your process and they're not the end-all be-all of your process. So how are you inputting into the tool? What knowledge are you using to put into the tool? Are you putting in your own lyrics? Are you humming your own melodies, feeding those into the tool? What is it that you're doing? What are those inputs? Are you drumming out a pattern on your desk with pencils and taking that recording and feeding it into the tool to help generate the song? By the way, all that means that you're part of the process. You are the creator of that music. You are simply using AI as the tool. So write first, generate second. I think that's a really key part here. I think that will anchor your copyright. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I do, from everything I've heard, that is what will anchor your copyright. Shoot for quality over quantity. The goal isn't to flood the market. There was a stat that said that here soon, we're on a path of 500,000 songs being released on Spotify per day. Nobody wants that, right? If you're a bot farm, but we don't want that in this community. And so let's lean in towards quality. Let's really refine these songs and spend time learning a DAW and figuring out how to properly master these songs to really make them sound great, right? We want to create great sounding music. The other thing is embrace transparency. I mentioned this in one of my books about getting placed onto playlists, is to be upfront and honest. Hey, listen, this is a human artist, then I use AI as a tool in my process. Like, the more we can embrace that and put that as like part of our badge, then the more this becomes accepted. The more people realize, oh, AI is not something to hide behind. It's something to embrace. These people are creating great sounding music using AI as a tool. And so let's embrace that. Let's embrace that transparency. And develop your signature. What's your signature sound? What are the fingerprints that you're putting on your music to make it your own? So it sounds like something that was created by a human, created by some sort of like artistic flash versus whatever the system could generate out quickly. And so think about that. What is your sound? We touched a lot on this in the Unlock Suno book, is developing that sound signature. And so spend some time thinking about that. What is your sound signature? All right. Oh, that was 20 whatever minutes. That was covered a decent amount of ground there. I could go on for a long time, but let's go ahead and close this up. I'm trying to not keep these podcasts too long, but I'll close with this. The opportunity is wide open in the AI music space. The gatekeepers are there, and they're building walls and moats, but small creators, we're just going to keep walking through those doors, okay? So let the gatekeepers do what they want to do. They will slowly start to dwindle in numbers. They will slowly start to embrace what it is that we're doing. Some of them will start pulling AI into their own processes. But let them build their walls. The opportunity for us is there. I am convinced AI music is the future of music. And so let's embrace it. Let's be those early adopters. Let's take this art and see how far we can push it. So again, I did a blog post that kind of does a full breakdown of this as well. I'll link it in the show notes if you want to take a look at that. For those of you that want to go deeper into this, we have the AI Music Library, which is all of the books and content that we're creating here at JG BeatsLab for one entry price. It's currently $77 to get access to the library, and you have it forever. That price will be going up, so there's a chance when you're listening to this podcast in the future, it is more than $77. Don't hold me to that, but that's everything that we publish from now into the future will be pulled into the library. You pay once, you have library access forever. So if you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to do so. And again, I want to get in now because those prices will be going up, and we have a lot more content to add to it. But that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about. Thank you very much for your time and your support, and I look forward to talking to you next time. One more thing before you go. Every Thursday morning, I send out a newsletter, one email a week. It's where I share what I'm working on in the studio, the research running the lab, and the methodology I'm refining in real time. New books, new blueprints, new findings from the Red Lab Protocol research. If that sounds useful, the sign up is right on the homepage at jgbeatslab.com. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next Friday.